Hey there, Prairie Plant Girl here. Well, welcome to the garden in January. It's kind of hard to think about gardening this time of year, but there's still quite a bit that we can be doing in January, even here on the cold Canadian prairies, to get ready for our next gardening season. So let's go in where it's somewhere a little bit warmer and a little less snow falling, and we'll talk about some of the things that I like to do in January to get ready for gardening in the coming season. This is much better. So much warmer. So, like I said, there are a lot of things that we can do to get ready for our gardening season, even in January. And as you can tell from the looks of outside, I'm not getting in that garden anytime soon. So all of my gardening will be done indoors for the next little while. And eventually I'll be able to get out to my beautiful greenhouse and get a few things moving around out there as well. But for January, February, and probably most of March, my gardening season is indoors. What I like to do in January to get ready for the coming months of gardening is to just organize everything. I want to make sure that I have all my seed trays ready, cleaned up if I had any disease in them or just any of the big chunks out. I don't thoroughly wash everything, but I do kind of give everything a rinse in the fall and have it packed away. And a lot of times it all just kind of winds up in my greenhouse. So I like to make sure that I have what I'm going to need inside before I'm ready to sow my seeds. I want to have everything right at hand so I'm not running around finding all of my supplies when the day comes that I am going to be sowing something. I also want to make sure that I have my seed starting mixes ready. So you don't need anything fancy to start seeds. You can buy seed starting mix from the store. I usually just get, because I start a lot of seeds, I usually get big bales of peat moss. And so I have one of those. It's not in my house yet, so I need to make sure it comes into my seed starting room and that it's thawed and ready to go when it's time to start seeds. And then I keep big bags of perlite and vermiculite on hand as well for my seed starting. So I'll mix the perlite in with the peat moss to just give it a little bit more loft and aeration. And then I use the vermiculite on top of my seeded cells so that it kind of just helps with damping off and moisture control and things like that. So I can show you more about that when I'm actually starting some seeds. But I like to get everything organized. I get my shelving that I have for growing my plants. I make sure that it's all cleaned off and ready to have the seed trays slid on and that the lights are all set up the way I want them and working properly. And so I've gotten that done and my shelves are ready to go. I also look through my garden journal, which I have a journal here. I keep track of when I've done any gardening tasks, and I keep track of the temperature and the general weather. And this goes through, 6 years. So I'm on year 3 of using this journal. And as you can see, in January, not a lot happening, but I do go through and look in the other months, in the more busy seed starting and growing months, see how things went, see what I was growing when. And I also just reflect back on the previous season or two in my mind and think about, are we using the foods that I'm growing? Are we enjoying them? Am I using them, the space that I have, to the best use by planting those things? Or would it be better just to be purchasing the few bits of those things that I need instead of taking up space in the garden growing it? Also, do I have the space to store the things? If it's something, that crop that needs to be stored over the winter after it's harvested, that sort of thing. So I just really evaluate what I've been growing, how I've been growing it, and if I want to continue growing it. And then I can go through my seed supply, which I keep in these photo totes. And this is my vegetable seed supply. So it has little cases inside that I've divided up into different sections for how I wanted it organized. And I just go through once I know what I want to grow, and I'll go through my seeds and see if I have those seeds available to me. And then I make a list of what I need to order. And then I go through the seed catalogs and I order things. Of course, I always wind up ordering things that weren't on my list. Sometimes it's because I needed to make a substitution because I couldn't find a particular variety I'm used to growing. Sometimes it's just a new and improved variety. Sometimes it's just something completely different that they've replaced an older variety with. Or sometimes there's just a beautiful flashy picture or something that looks exciting that I just want to try, or something that's been recommended to me. But I get those things all ordered up, get my seeds ordered, and then I know what I'm going to have to grow. I also like to make myself a calendar, a drawing of where I'm going to put everything in the garden, so I have an idea of how much to start of each thing, how much space I'm going to have. You don't have to do this, but it gives you a good idea of maybe how much seed to start at a time, if you're doing succession sowings, or just how much space you have, just to put it in a little bit of a reality check is what this is for me. Because of course I want to grow a lot of things, but I don't always have the space to grow all of the things I want, even though I'm very lucky and I do have a pretty good sized garden for an urban lot. After I've done all that, I go through and I just print off blank calendar pages. And this is January 2025. And I write down at the beginning of, well, the first thing I do with these calendar pages is I count back. And I have a video about that. I'll try and remember to link it for you. But how I count back from my average last frost date, which is in the middle of May. And I count back so I know when it's like 6 weeks before my average last frost, when it's 10 weeks before my average last frost. And I just write that in the margins on my calendar pages so that I know January for me is around 16 to 20 weeks before my average last frost. So not a lot that I really need to get started in that time. I could be growing a few things indoors. I could be starting in like my hydroponic system, growing some things in there. I could be just experimenting with getting a few things ready early. But for the most part, there's not a lot that I have to get started then. But I do go through my seed packs, I go through my knowledge of how things grow in my area, and my knowledge of what I need to do to get things even started in my area. And I'll write down for each week what I need to get started on that week in order to kind of keep on a schedule of seed starting. So the veggies, or I guess edible plants that I'm starting in January, because I keep a calendar for both my ornamentals and my edibles. So in January, I will be starting my thyme, my oregano, my rosemary, and my onions. So that's what I'll be getting going in January as far as the food crops go. And then I should have one here for flowers. So for flowers, again, not a lot going on. Now I could start some things sooner. And if you start some flowers earlier, they will do well to get you a big plant to plant out when it's safe to do so. But I grow a lot of things from seeds, so I don't want to get too much going too early that I get overwhelmed with plants near my average last frost when I have a ton of things started. And I'm also trying to direct sow some things and I'm running out of shelf space and light space. It can get a little crazy. So I try to rein myself in and not get too much started too soon. But I will be taking some of my native seeds and I'll be doing a cold stratification in my refrigerator. So I'm going to be taking my prairie drop seed, heartleaf Alexander, hairy golden aster, and tufted fleabane. And I'm going to try a cold stratification in the refrigerator with those and see how that goes for getting them started. I've tried some of those in the past with winter sowing with not the greatest luck with any of them. And I think, what was it, the tufted fleabane and the heartleaf Alexander, I think I've managed to get going before with the cold stratification in the refrigerator. If I remember correctly, I did this a few weeks ago. But so I thought I would just do that with those seeds. So I'll be bringing you along with me as I get ready for my gardening season, as I'm starting seeds, stratifying seeds, doing all of those things. Another thing that you could do if you have the plants, sometimes I have overwintered plants like coleus is a good one. Trying to think if you had like begonias and things. I have a few begonias, but they're small. I won't be doing this, but if you have plants that you want to propagate to make more plants with in the coming season, then January is also a great time to start taking cuttings off of those plants and rooting them either in water or soil. And I do have some videos about that. And then you can get those rooted and going for the coming season so that you have a little bit larger plant than just a little stem cutting to put out. But I don't have any of that I'm going to be doing this year, but I do have videos on those things for you, so you can check the links in the description below, and hopefully I remember to put them in there for you. Another thing that's good to do every month, but sometimes gets forgotten about during the busy holiday season, and maybe you need to get back on track with it, is just checking through any stored like flower tubers, bulbs, rhizomes that you have. Make sure they're all still in good condition. And also go through your supply of stored food. If you have potatoes, onions, garlic. I just went and checked on my dried beans, and unfortunately they were not dry enough apparently when I put them away, and I'd stored them a little bit differently this year, and they were all moldy. So I've lost an entire stash of dried beans this year, but that's part of gardening and part of storing things. But it's good to go through those supplies and just check on them at least once a month. So take this as a little reminder to have a little look at those things. While you're waiting for the warm weather, you can pop in January and check out all your stored tubers, bulbs, and food supplies. But keep checking back at my channel, and I will bring you along for all of the things as I'm getting ready for my growing season. One more thing that you might want to do is do some germination testing. So if you haven't learned how to do that yet, I do have a video on that as well. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.